My name is Lex Pulos. I usually go by Lex. And my title is I'm an assistant professor in the communication department. I got my undergraduate degree at Colorado State University. Spring semester I applied to the graduate program, got in the graduate program at Colorado State. And my undergraduate focus was a little bit on kind of media and media history. And then when I got in the graduate program, it kind of turned to rhetoric studies and digital media studies. And I started to develop a little bit of a critical cultural slants, the implications of ideology and hegemony and those things as they apply to digital media. And then I applied to the PhD program at the University of New Mexico, where I kind of got heavy into rhetoric and critical cultural studies and really started to develop my interest in digital media studies, video games, electronic arts, things like that. Then also pop culture was another big emphasis that I studied. So both including video games and like board games, tabletop board games, graphic novels, regular comic books, kind of the broader perspective that we assume pop culture to be. The things I would like to maybe develop or push on would be like games in society, so taking a maybe historical look and looking at how games have impacted and influenced the development of society and culture, both from prehistoric agrarian cultures and kind of how games like Mancala have influenced the spread and use of agriculture to kind of solidify cities and nations, spreading in through to more contemporary versions, looking at how Monopoly influenced the 1900s and stuff like that, and how contemporary video games have influenced culture today. As I sort of entered into it, I guess sort of at a youthful, innocent age to a certain extent, I wasn't quite sure of my conceptions of gender and identity. But I kept continually seeing things come up in the media, how I was supposed to fit into a certain body type, how I was supposed to be a certain person, these types of things. And it really started to pique my interest as to how do these constructions occur, how do they get influenced and created, and then how do I perpetuate and reaffirm what I'm seeing in the media. So some of the original projects that I started doing started to look at movies and television and kind of how I see representations of myself, how I try to put myself into these bodies and or reflect these bodies and attain this idealized male persona to a certain extent. So I wrote a paper, this is my first year, my PhD program, kind of addressing World of Warcraft, the construction of gender in an online space, and the problems and consequences of that. And part of the argument that we always heard too was that it's an online space, so it's a safe space. We don't have to bring in external cues, external hate into it. We can challenge things. That's fundamentally not true, and we always perpetuate these sort of social norms that we know into these online spaces. And then we have plenty of other instances where online bullying has occurred and other matters where hate crime has occurred through digital space. So that was part of one of my interests that I kind of piqued. Other things I've also done in terms of research in gender and sexuality is looking at how voice kind of changes when you have a male player playing Halo or a first-person shooter in general. When they play and they do poorly, they get claimed as being female, they kind of get made fun of through specific terms. When they do well, they're prioritized and hailed as being a great player and a key member of their team. When you just change the voice, same player, they're making all headshots, they're doing really well. Change that voice to a female, they're still undermined and still disregarded as an accurate player. So how even though your play skill maintains the same level, how voice can kind of change those things, and how we perpetuate hate crime against females in digital spaces in sort of another format. Games tell us something about what it means to be human and what it means to be ourselves and what it means about society. And so I think games have a very compelling element to them. For me, that resonates really highly in that when we play games, we sort of learn to be socialized. We learn how to interact with other individuals. We learn social codes and cues, how to approach individuals, how to enter into conversation. And I think at one point, if we move from games to real life, the game model fits very appropriately. We have academia as a game. You get so many points, you get a grade. That's a level that you meet. You get to go to the next level, you're a sophomore. The next level, you graduate. The next level, you get to go on to a job. When you enter the job, it's another game. What rules do you apply to? How do you understand your boss? How do you understand your role? What level do you get? And you have to work your way through the game in that sense. And then I also just think that like games offer us challenges. I mean, you don't often go to a class, right? You fail 42 times at like a public speaking assignment and want to go back again. But you can fail 42 times at like a Mario level and then keep wanting to play that same level, or like you can't get past any sort of level in Assassin's Creed and like, well, I want to get a perfect synchronization, so I'm gonna do this again and again, and like they sort of meet us at this point where we're challenged just enough that failure is okay. Will Wheaton kind of says it best, right? It doesn't matter if you're into sports, if you're into science, if you're into games, if you're into politics. What a nerd means is to be passionate about it, to be involved and invested in it, and to dedicate yourself to it. And I think that is such a compelling truth statement about what it means to be a nerd, is that you're into it and you're invested in it. And I think that's what fandom does. And I think that's what I'm kind of passionate and excited about, especially when it comes to students, right? Like, we don't allow students to kind of have those passions, and we need to cultivate those. And I think that's also one of the most exciting things about being a teacher, is we get to cultivate together these passions for stuff, especially pop culture.